Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, board members, town planner. We're going to call to order the March 27th, 2023 meeting of the Town of Hanson Planning Board here at 6:36. I would like to also announce for those that are in attendance that this meeting is being recorded for distribution on the Whitman Hanson Community Access page. Playback times and other related information on this recording can be found on WHCA.tv. So our audio is being recorded and it will be published. I'm going to go right into tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to take the agenda out of order? Yes. Motion's been made to take the agenda out of order. Made by Mr. Ellis, seconded by Mr. Cohen. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So we will take the minutes out of order and place those on to the end of the meeting. So we can go right into our appointments. First on our agenda is discussion of veteran housing with Mr. Bruce Buckley, CEO of Soldier On.
Unfortunately, they have not clicked in. They were going to do it remote.
Okay.
And they haven't come on yet.
Okay.
So he is aware of this meeting this evening.
Okay. And we'll continue on and try to fit him in, seeing how we're out of order. We can try to fit them in when we're in between sessions. Is that the way? Yeah. So a few moments, and then we have an A&R on our appointment list for 6:45. So board members review your packets. That's item 2 in your packet. Always got a new one, right? We can't discuss this until 6:45, right?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It looks like Bruce Buckley is now on it.
Okay. Do you know how long this discussion is over?
It's over. Mr. Buckley, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey there.
How are you? We have a few minutes before our next appointment, so if you guys want to go ahead and give your elevator a pitch.
Sure. So I think, I took a ride with some staff by the site a couple weeks, probably a month ago, and just trying to get a sense of, the community with, as much as you can get by driving around for half an hour. And also, the location to the T-stop and the grocery store and all of those items. And, as I think we talked before, Soldier On builds affordable housing for veterans who are homeless, at risk of homelessness. We've gone up to as far as 80% AMI on a building in New Jersey, which is, I can explain that at some point why we would go that high. But we also provide a lot of services to the veteran, from case management to a meal a day, to on-site transportation, to a wellness director, to full access to mass Medicaid as well as VA benefits. legal support, I could keep going, but I just wanted to get a sense of where it was and how does it fit into kind of our footprint in the Eastern Mass area as we look to do more and more projects there. And I think got a decent sense. The VA is not very far away in Brockton, which is a big piece to us because many of the average age, and this isn't age restricted, but the average age in any of our projects is either 58 or 59 years old. So it tends to be an older population of veterans, and the needs, if they've had some difficulty in life, if they've been homeless at any point in life, you can usually add 10 or 15 years to their age to kind of get their health profile and the needs that they have. So we do things like build our bathrooms, always handicap accessible, even though the rooms may not be a fully handicapped room. That includes bars, a roll-in shower, and for the obvious reason, as folks age, you don't want the housing restrictions to force them into other housing if there's a way to avoid that. So, I think all of that, we thought, geez, a lot of the pieces are in the neighborhood. The other piece that I think to throw out here tonight is the fact that ideally, because we provide a lot of services, and all we really receive is rent, like any other housing, and it would be the HUD-approved rent for your area, probably for a one-bedroom is generally what we build. We look to have some number of units. So we try to keep a minimum number of units to be around 25. And I think that's the other piece we try to see. Can we fit 25 units or more onto a site? In Tewksbury, we've got 21 units in a relatively tight site. And that, is doable, but it's tight just financially. And that's another piece that we look for. So I've got with me tonight Jim Scalise, who's a civil engineer out here in Western Mass. Has done civil engineering for years, and he's kind of our guy. Not that he's always the on-site guy if we do a project, but he helps me review the sites. And he's done a kind of his quick and but thorough, I think, snapshot just to throw out what he sees of the Main Street site and the Phillips Street site.
So good evening. For your record, again, Jim Scalise, I'm an engineer with SK Design Group. I've worked with Soldier On for over 10 years. I've been involved in all their development projects that they built, both as an owner's representative and as a civil engineer. That goes from New Jersey. We've done projects, Massachusetts, all along the East Coast. And so I'm pretty familiar with their program and how things kind of fit together as they develop projects. So trying to, just take a look at Hanson and why would you might consider Soldier On. The first thing I looked at was the state's housing inventory and see that you're below the 10% threshold, which means that you are susceptible to a comprehensive permit application. And thus, an affordable project typically is beneficial to a community to protect itself from a market rate developer trying to jam density, frankly, into a residential area. And because of that, I think Soldier On might be attractive, potentially, not discounting all the other attributes of Soldier On and helping, formerly homeless veterans. But just from that point alone, I see that there is a benefit. Bruce asked me to look at a couple of locations, one on Phillips Street and one on Main Street. The Phillips Street site is located in an AA residential zone. Frankly, multi-family is not allowed in that zone, and that site is somewhat encumbered by wetland resource areas. So if I take a kind of a general approach that I use throughout Massachusetts, there should be some sort of non-disturbance zone along the wetlands. It's a forested site, so I'm sure the Conservation Commission will be interested at least in how we go about developing it. Projects that do have wetlands and buffer zones require stormwater management, and takes up land area. So the usable land area, not counting a non-disturbance zone, is probably about an acre of usable land. Might be 1.24 acres that aren't in wetland. It's a relatively smaller site. then based on your zoning, there is a section under both Zone A and AA in your bylaw, which I'm sure you're aware, that says, under 6H, it says any use determined to be of similar character in the district can be, allowed by the zoning board. I'm sure this is something they use with some scrutiny. So I guess the issue that I see with the Phillips Street site is frankly density. Respecting the design parameters at the site, there is some topography, there's buffer zone and wetlands. Stormwater management is going to be required under the Wetlands Protection Act. So we have a situation where we want a relatively smaller building footprint, which would probably require, multi-story. Now, I don't see in your table of dimensional requirements height, and I haven't studied your zoning carefully enough to kind of figure that out, but typically it's 2.5, 3 stories is what I see in residential zones. This building will likely want to be similar to some of the other developments that we've done to keep that footprint small. At least on the Phillips Street site, you probably need some height. Or you have a project of less than 20 units, which financially is difficult to make the budget work. So good location. I think the entrance and exit is along the street there is good at sight distance, but might be a little small. And or if the community would allow a taller building, then that might be a way to manage it. Now, some good news is that through a lot of empirical data and working on many projects in Soldier on, we know that their projects function quite well with about 0.75 parking spaces per dwelling unit. So less than 1 parking space per unit is that number. The Pittsfield project, which was the first one that we did, that number was below 0.5 for an affordable project. And as we've done more and more, and the population has kind of changed a little bit over the last 10 years, we find that number has grown. So we're at about 0.75, so that allows us to build less parking. We typically include provisions to expand parking in our projects, but that would be something that we could work on to keep that footprint small. If I just jump quickly to the 533 Main Street site, that's also in a residential A zone. That site's a little bigger, about 2.8 acres, but also has some wetland resource areas. And because of that, stormwater would have to be managed, I think, appropriately under the stormwater management policy. But again, the zoning would allow, a special permit to be granted, I think, for this use, or we could do a friendly 40B project, and that Soldier on projects are 100% affordable. So they used to use that criteria. So I think the zoning, if the community was supportive, we tend to only build projects where communities invite us, frankly, and where the community supports our projects, has some interest in having both an affordable project and also very supportive of veterans. And because of that, we typically enjoy a fairly friendly zoning review process. And I think that would be ultimately required at this location because of at both sites. We have a relatively tight site. I mean, the Main Street site has an existing building, 6 has a softball field there. It also has 6 apartments already. So how that's managed as far as the existing building is concerned would be a question. But just adding a new building there with the site would again fairly tight. So I think the issue for Soldier on from a very practical standpoint would be the size of those 2 locations that we looked at. The community looks beautiful. We're very interested, of course, in developing there. If the community wants us, and there's always there's demand and there's need, unfortunately, for supporting veterans. So thank you for the time. Again, I can work much harder on this than I have to this point, but right now it looks like these 2 sites are a little tight. Would be my initial preliminary opinion. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Bruce. Board members, anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Kevin?
On the Phillips Street project, right, if that's a friendly 40B, some of those resource areas could be reduced, is that true? Have you guys looked at that?
I didn't hear the whole comment there.
In regards to the Phillips Street site, would it be in a friendly 40B? Would there be considerations of reductions of zoning
Yeah, under the 40B law, actually all the zoning, is, first of all, every town agency, meaning the Board of Health, every town board, all reports their review of the project to the zoning board, and it's kind of a single permit is issued, comprehensively, hence the name for that project. And the existing zoning bylaw is not applicable under 40B, so you could ultimately avoid all setbacks other than building code. The building code would require, for fire separation, typically, I don't know, greater than 10 feet from a property line. But, your normal dimensional requirements in the AA, which has a, 50-foot front setback, all those setbacks, for example, go away, which makes it easier. I've done several of these, I did one that wasn't friendly, and that was the last one. But I've done several that are friendly, and, those have gone quite smoothly. But, to be friendly, ultimately, we need to usually embark on a process where we share, opinions on and collaborate on how to develop a project that doesn't fit zoning but still fits the context of the community and the neighborhood.
So Jim, idealistically, you're looking for about a 5 acre, to make those numbers that 2021, you're looking probably at about a 5 acre dry lot.
Yeah, I mean, 3 acres would probably, if it were, notwithstanding, buffer zones and topography, we could probably fit it, because of our low parking demand. But, I think that's a minimum of usable land.
Mr. Coe?
What's the proximity to the train station that you're trying to keep it within?
Well, I think first of all, we're going to have, all our projects have on-site transportation. So there would be a van and some form of a driver. Usually we try to find drivers who live in the property. That's speculating on who will live there, but that's typically worked out, or we find another way. But I think, the proximity isn't critical. It's, as I said, we have about 400 units. We've got some in Boston, we've got several out here in Western Massachusetts projects. We've got this one in New Jersey that's 70 units. And they're all very similar at this point in time as to who lives there. So walking isn't always an option for too many, for all of the population. So we would be transporting, whether it was probably a quarter mile or 3 miles to the train stop.
Thank you.
So the next steps for us over here in Hanson would be, just nose to the grindstone and looking at other properties? Or are you looking specifically for movement on one of the two?
I think more options would be better if there are some, and you guys have some ideas, you folks, that would, again, in Tewksbury, we got a variance for the height. It's sort of a lot that starts below grade, and we got a 4th story, because without it, we were at 16 units, and it just doesn't work. It's very difficult for us to do one of that size as kind of a standalone. If it's on a bigger campus, well, maybe, because we have other services and supports, but to be a single destination, I think we would look to do, again, I'll start with 25 units as the kind of the basic, sort of the minimum. Certainly not drop dead minimum, but that would be it. So I think other sites would be better. I don't think these are impossible, but I do think if there are options, it would be better. And I don't know what else is in your, obviously you maybe have some thoughts.
Can take a look.
Yeah, we can definitely take a look, it's tight.
We're limited.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll go back to the grindstone and look at the overlays, and we'll see what we can come up with.
Yeah, if you have any ideas, I'm happy to screen that. I do that for Soldier On, and it's not an expense to them, so we're willing to collaborate and work together. And if there's ideas, we'll take a look at them.
I was by the site in Brookline about a month ago, it's a great site.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that came out nice.
Yeah.
Big difference, they have a big septic tank that they can dump into. In Deer Island, we don't have that. Well, thank you for your time, we appreciate it, thanks for all your efforts, and we'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, appreciate that.
Good
Great.
guy.
Moving on to our A&R on our calendar, so we have approval of required plan 86 Hampton Way, map 100, lot 29, lot 6A-H, applicant Kevin Perkins, plan prepared by Webbing Engineering Associates. Mr. Perkins, hi, how are you?
Deborah Perkins.
Hi, how are you? We have a sheet. After review, does anybody have any questions? Mr. Ellis?
I would like to see that because there's two areas here that could be an access portion. I know they have one delineated as access portion, but at some point, I think I would feel more comfortable if there was the other area that's 50.10 feet, also have a designation on there, not for access. All the utilities and everything else has to come from according to our bylaw, the adequate access portion.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't get used for something else. I would like to see if they could put that on there, that it's not
You could,
not to be used as an access.
if the applicant is, they're okay with it, the planning board, what they would do is note on the plan in this section right here that says not to be used for access.
Well,
This area right in here. So you have the access portion there, you have the access portion there, and that conforms to the bylaw. So they just want to add a note here that says not to be used for access.
Yeah, I'm not. This is kind of
Well, other than that, how does the board feel about the plan?
yeah, I think it's important so it doesn't get construed later on, and 5 or 10 years from now, somebody else moves in and they see that there and they think that they can use it for access of some sort, and it's not supposed to be.
I mean, you could add it, you could add a note, you could put, you could either write the note in there, or you could put an asterisk in there and just write it on the plan
Yeah, that's all.
and just denote it.
We've done that before on different plans, we write it on at the meeting, on my line.
I think it's a huge improvement from the original submission. It conforms a lot better to the zoning, especially for the hammerhead lot areas.
I'd like to make a motion, given, obviously Dawn has an issue, so as long as that issue is resolved, I feel like I'd like to make a motion to approve.
So there's a motion on the floor to approve the A&R, provided the request for notation not accessible in the 50.10 foot area is noted on the plans. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Motion's been seconded. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Vote opposed to approve it with your condition.
Thank you. Satisfied?
The motion carries, so we can approve this by going over the checklist, but we have to know that that's going to be a condition that's going to be on the plan.
So you can add that note on the plan right now, tonight.
And the applicant's going to be okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All it's saying is, the plan's approved, so you get 2 lots. All it's saying is that, we're just gonna put a note on the plan that says this area here isn't for access, in other words, no driving. Driving there, driving there, which you have to anyway.
yes, what?
What's that?
I don't understand what you're saying.
So, the driving for this lot is gonna be here,
Right,
and the driving for this lot is over here.
right,
And all the planning board is saying is that there's this little piece in here that goes to this,
right.
that don't drive it. That's all it's saying.
But doesn't it meet all the requirements as it is right now without putting that little note there?
Yeah, but if you're more comfortable with adding that note. Yeah, good.
You wanna take a quick recess?
Yeah.
We'll take a quick recess. Motion for a quick recess?
Second.
Motion made and seconded for recess for 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes?
Sure.
Who made the
Motion is
motion?
made and seconded for a recess for 5 minutes in regards to A&R. Any questions in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Who made the motion? Who made the motion?
Mr. Kemet?
No,
Mr. Bennett, seconded
For the recess?
for recess.
Joe made the motion.
Well, I entertain a motion, I thought you were okay.
All right, I'll be off.
So we are recessed for 5 minutes. I think we're back tonight. I got the A&R checklist ready to go.
I did go through the checklist, all the stuff is there.
You already went through it? We have a line here.
No, so it's gonna get lost in the translation.
Where would you want to write that into? Right on the plan?
Yeah, put it on my life, you put in that little space,
Yeah.
C note 1, and just next to it.
Yeah, I'll put it right on the plan. Not to reuse the text. Yeah, we've done it. Matter of fact, one point I brought. Yeah, load on the, launch on the wall. You okay to proceed?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to call the planning board meeting back into order. So we have a motion that's been approved. It's been voted on for approval, unanimous approval with the annotation on the Mylar that that's not accessible.
Okay. I'm just repeating. You said, that he's finding 20 rights on it, but it's not really within the scope of the planning board to put that notation on.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to sign these. It's up to you. You do have the authority to just sign. Makes it easier.
And if you could sign the paper plan underneath as well.
Sure. Sign these. No, you don't have to do it.
I think it's funny.
You have to sign?
You don't have to. You got to sign your name away to me. Yep. And the town planner has a copy of the A&R checklist, so that's going to also go to that paper, and we're going to show that it's filed.
Did you want to take this tonight, or does Kevin want to come pick it up?
Does that do well, or?
No.
No, take it, right?
On the side of the one wall. If Kevin has a question about that, in regards to all the signatures being on the Mylar, we have on file the registry of deeds, and planning board has authorized the chair to sign the one time. It's approved. Awesome. Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Okay. Moving on the agenda to the discussion proposed bylaw by the Drainage and Stormwater Committee to place all retention drainage structures underground. Item 3 in your packet. Yes, Tom Planner.
The public hearing comes in at 7, and that Drainage Stormwater Committee is scheduled for 7:15. So if you'd like to do Alden Way as a public hearing,
You want to open up the public hearing first?
yeah, that's number 4.
All right, absolutely. So I'll rescind that announcement about the agenda. We are out of order, so we'll tack that on before the minutes at the end of the meeting, but prior to board business. So we have a 7 p.m. review and report on request of the Hanson Select Board to lay out Alden Way, Stringer Lane, and Gray Lane as a public way as required under Mass General Law 41, subsection 81G and 81I. Motion to open the hearing. So, motion's been made by Mr. Ellis, seconded by Mr. Kemet. Any discussion in regards to that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The public hearing is open. Tom Fenner.
As the members are aware, there's a citizen's petition to get Alden Way, Stringer Lane, and Gray Lane as approved as public ways at the town meeting coming up in May. So the petition went before the select board took a vote, and so what you're doing is providing a report to the select board as required under the subdivision control law.
For the record, ladies and gentlemen, this was also posted and advertised in the March 9th, 23 and March 16th, 23 with the Hanson Express. That reads, the Town of Hanson Planning Board, in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81G, and Section 81I, the Planning Board of the Town of Hanson, Massachusetts, will hold a public hearing on Monday, March 27th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in a select board meeting room located on the lower level of Hanson Town Hall for the purpose of providing a report on the Hanson Select Board's intention to lay out the following private roads as public ways: Alden Way, Stringer Lane, and Gray Lane. The roadways were shown on a definitive subdivision plan endorsed by the Hanson Planning Board October 15, 1997. The plans were recorded at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 40, page 652-659. Stringer Lane was modified and approved under a subdivision modification plan and endorsed by the Hanson Planning Board on October 14, 1998. The plan was recorded at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 41, page 706. The members of the public desiring to be heard should appear at the time and place designated for the public hearing. Plans and accompanying documentation are on file on the Town Planning Office, second floor at Hanson Town Hall, and can be reviewed by appointment.
There's also in your packet, Mr. Chairman, a memorandum from the select board to the planning board, if you'd like to read that into the record.
For the record, Town of Hanson Select Board, 542 Liberty Street, memorandum to Town of Hanson Planning Board from Lisa M. Green Esquire, Town
Administrator.
Thank you, Administrator. I was going to say Town Manager. February 27, 2023, Alden Way, Gray Lane, Stringer Lane. Please be advised the Select Board voted its intention during its February 21st, 2023 meeting to lay out the following 3 private ways, Alden Way, Gray Lane, and Stringer Lane, as public ways and referred on to the Planning Board. Please accept this correspondence as a formal request to add to the Planning Board's agenda. Thank you, Lisa M. Green, Town Administrator, Esquire. Town Planner.
So as you know, I think everyone pretty much knows the history of the project and where it stands. There are recorded subdivision plans, and we do also have copies of roadway as-built plans. I did send a letter over to Site Tech. There's been, I guess, that company has been sold to a different company, and then they seem to have split up. This is based on research I've done, but I did reach out to Mr. Steve Giosa because of what I found out. He's back to owning part of it. I think it was a case of they were bought out by someone else, it became a partnership, and then the partnership sort of dissolved, and so it's sort of two separate site techs. One does environmental, one does civil. So I have reached out to them and asked them if they would be willing to maybe give us some mylars for the as-built. I have not heard back from them as of yet. But my previous discussions with town council, and it seems that this can move forward without necessarily having a mylar to record, that they can reference plans that are already on record at the registry. So, based on that, at this point, you know, the planning board has the EP environmental report from 2019, and it's just up to the board's pleasure as to what type of report they want to issue to the select board, whether it's in support or not in support, and then this would get pushed along to town meeting.
And a placeholder on this town meeting?
Yes, because citizens petitions, this goes to town meeting no matter what.
Yep.
So it's just a matter of whether or not the board is willing to support this to move forward towards the next step for becoming a public way.
Any questions from the board?
Legally, it just has to be approved at town meeting. We're just endorsing it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So as part of the process, the select board has a meeting and they vote to lay out the road. And then they ask the planning board for a report. And so that's what you're doing tonight. So then you issue a report. It's a non-binding, it can be a verbal report or it can be a written report. It's not something that has to be like 20 pages long. You just, you know, either you support it or you don't support it, or you may have conditional support. It depends on the board's pleasure. So then that'll go up to the select board, and then they'll move it on from there. Ultimately, it's when it gets to town meeting, that's the ultimate vote.
Do we also have a copy of Jameson's letter?
In the file, yes. I do have a copy here if you'd like. I don't know if you want to read it into the record again, or?
No, I think we're all that we have it, which is why we still have it on file.
Yes.
And Howie Dorothy didn't seem to have any day two concerns.
No, he did not.
Okay. Mr. Motion. Ms. Allison made a motion to support.
Second.
Motion to support has been seconded by Mr. Benonato. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. 3-2.
302. Oh, you were opposed, correct?
3-2.
So, I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Ms. Ellis made the motion, Mr. Benonato seconded. So you can put that all together and get that over to Lynn?
Yep. So the motion still carries because it was 3-2.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay.
Great.
Can you hear me, Mrs. Crawford? All right. Okay. You know what? Let me just send her a message. It could be on our end. I know the microphone's picking up on this end. It could be her end. Can you hear us at all, Mrs. Crawford?
She might be on mute on her.
Yeah. Are you on mute on your end?
I can see,
There you go. There you go. The planning board has voted to endorse the motion, to endorse for the roads to become public ways. So what will happen now is I'll write up a report and get it to the select board within the next day or so, and they will move that along.
okay, thank you very much.
And so that's all we have for you.
I need a motion to close the public hearing. So motion has been made by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Mr. Ellis to close the public hearing. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The public hearing is closed.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are going to return.
Thank you, Mrs. Crawford. Thank you, Mrs. Crawford. We're all set.
Thank you, I'm gonna leave you now, bye.
Bye-bye.
And we're going to return now to the discussion of proposed bylaw of the Drainage and Stormwater Committee to place all retention drainage structures underground. Town plan.
Okay, let me just call that up.
Let's see, so I can read into the record. The original, let's see, what I have in the top copy. The top,
So-
the original?
The second part of that is the original that was written by the Drainage Committee. Then there's been a revision to the article by myself, which you see the top page, which is listed as Article 7.
The second, I'm sorry.
Yeah, say it one more time for me.
So the second half of what you have in front of you,
Page 2?
correct,
So page 2 is the original?
is the original.
Okay.
That was done by the Drainage Committee.
Yes.
And then what you see on top, which says draft, that is that's what I wrote.
Number 7.
Correct.
Article 7.
So the article would read, article to see if the town will vote to request that the Hanson Planning Board during the next revision of the Hanson subdivision control law consider and or require that all stormwater retention areas be placed in underground chambers of site conditions allow and conform with all stormwater management guidelines in place at the time, or to take any other action relative thereto, proposed by the Stormwater Drainage Committee. Explanation, a quote, retention area is a form of stormwater management and treatment. Retention areas function by retaining stormwater and then allowing said stormwater to infiltrate into the existing soil beneath them. The planning board will review all locations and state regulations and best engineering practices during their next revision of the Hanson subdivision control law to determine if underground chambers are the most feasible and economical option.
The select board, I was at the select board hearing this past, last week, Tuesday. Time flies. And the select board had discussed this, they were okay with it. The only thing they asked for is that the explanation be revised.
Okay.
So that what you see in front of you has been sent to them as well as the Drainage Committee. It went to the select board and it went to the Drainage Committee. What you see in front of you went to everyone that's been involved.
I see the chair of Hansfield's here.
That's correct.
Yeah. Any comments, concerns?
Well, we did get that, as Tony said, and we approved the revision.
Great.
So we'll hope to move forward and put it at town meeting.
So you need a motion?
Yeah, absolutely.
So move.
Motion's been made to approve the Article 7 with explanation that's been revised onto the select board. Motion's been made by Mr. Cameron, properly seconded by Mr. Benonato. Any questions in regards to that motion?
Yes, I need to look at this again. So the wording here is considered or required in all stormwater.
Yeah.
So that kind of,
You can either consider or you can require it, whatever you choose to do. It doesn't say that you have to require it.
one or the other.
Right. It'll depend on what you determine will be the best option.
Now, who makes that determination?
The planning board would make that determination during the next revision of the subdivision control law.
Okay, but when it's on site, who makes that final decision? In other words, when a developer comes in,
This is a case,
it's up to them to prove one way or the other.
no, it doesn't, this
The board gonna,
this is for you to look at your regulations when it comes time for the subdivision control law. And at that time, you'll make a decision based on your research if you want to put the retention basins underground. If you feel that at that time that retention basin should go underground based on regulations and best engineering practices, the subdivision control law will be revised to say such. If you decide that you do not, then there will be no change. That's what it means by consider and or require.
Okay, thank you. All set? Yep. Any other questions in regards to Mr. Kemet's motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Great.
Okay. I'll get this.
Thank you.
That means it's, goes on to an article. It's on anyway, David's board should they support. So that people can vote on it? Yeah, oh yeah, it was going there anyway, but the planning board is graciously opposed to support.
Endorse it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll get that from you.
Yeah, I'll email it to you tomorrow. Okay. And I'll email the select board, let them know that what the planning board has done.
Excellent.
Okay?
Thanks again.
Yep.
Oh, we're making good progress. We're back to 7:20 regular agenda stuff. Board business, nothing for open space. OCPC, I'm not able to make that meeting tomorrow. So you think you'll make it? That's not
No,
tomorrow night, Wednesday.
no, I'll tell you off,
Okay.
later.
The only thing that I had recently was I attended a OCPC Zoom meeting on Monday. That was part of Mr. Bailey that's over there put on a presentation in regards to bicycling, and they're looking at increasing of bicycling and bicycling paths in and around the South Shore area. So it was somewhat informative about mostly just pointing out the lack of bicycling opportunities. There's a big push, obviously, with OCPC being in Brockton. There's a lot of developments going on in the downtown Brockton area. I believe that what we're going to see over the next years is some of that ride share, rent-a-bike, that kind of rent-a-bike stuff. I think it's going to be coming to the metro South area. So, that's it.
Those are always interesting. The only downside that seems, the biggest problem that I've read about those is people rent the bike and then it winds up on the side street somewhere in a pile.
They're talking about how people in Boston rent them, and they go from the core of the city out to like Brookline or Alston, and they return them to stations outside there, so when you're downtown, there's no bikes. So then they're gonna send like a Mack truck out to get all the bikes back.
Yeah.
Mr. Ellis, High Street Park Committee. Well, we're moving along. We had to cancel a meeting last week. But I went up and looked at it. The land planning has delineated the locations for the different facilities that are there, the playground, etc., parking area, and location of the bandstand area. One thing I wasn't sure was the location for the retention area. So I don't know if they got that done or not. I didn't get a chance to look at it. Is that not going to be kind of difficult out there with all the shale? All the shale? Shale, like 2 feet under the ground, it's just, no, flagstone. Oh, it's a good stuff? Oh, okay, good. See, what happened on High Street, it was during the glacial movement, it moved all the good sand and gravel off the top of the hill and on the sides. Okay. So where the condos, I built condos down on the Main Street side, that was all beautiful gravel down the part. And you're right. And the graveyard on this end of it was all good gravel for the graveyard. And in between, there's been, it's really good. Soil has all come off the top. The trouble up on the top of the hill is that you can find the good gravel, but you have to find the vein of it. It's not just like on the outside perimeter. So it should be. That's where the septic system for the hospital, that it was the newest system, which we were salvaged and going to use it for the past Title 5, and was all good gravel area. That's Mr. Coe.
No update for this evening.
Mr. Kevin.
We have not met yet.
Mr. Bennett,
This on today, sorry.
that's it, just got to take it today. All right, great. Anybody have any
So
questions?
can I go back in the agenda?
Absolutely.
I wanted to talk about the show going on. I don't think we really had a chance to fully discuss that.
Yeah.
So my question is, I know that that's a difficult site, but it seems like they weren't really impressed with it. So I'm wondering if there's something that we can do through the selectmen and the ZBA to like maybe, I wouldn't say pre-approve, but at least review this project so that maybe there's things we can do to allow them to increase the size of the project, reduce the, the buffer zones. And, because I know under ZBA, a private developer would definitely do all those things. It didn't sound like they were going in that direction.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of confused on that.
All right, well, we'll put that on the end of the go to the order, and then we'll get through the rest of the budget stuff, and the agenda stuff, and then we can talk about it.
Okay.
Stonebridge Commons bond release,
Um,
item 5.
as the board is aware, there's $4,100 left in the bond. Mr. Ritter has assented to giving up that money, so he signed a release. Town council has had the HOA representative sign a release. I did find in your packet a set, all the as-built plans for the entire complex that I could find. All
These
the
are all
roads.
on file?
Yeah, that's what we have in our file. The gentleman, Mr. Culligan, Mr. Jim Culligan, who I've been dealing with from the HOA, he had actually come in and asked me if I had any as-built plans from the Pulte side. And I said, well, I haven't had a chance to go looking for them, but I was able to locate them in the file cabinet. So we do have all the as-built. I do not have any kind of Mylars that could be recorded, but I do have all these as-built plans. They're all from Marsh Yonda. So the HOA could go to Marsh Yonda and request
A Mylar.
Mylars if they wish to do so and record them.
Yeah, perfect. Well, we've already voted on the release, right?
No.
Oh, we haven't?
No, it was tabled at that point because Mr. Ellis was concerned about seeing all the as-built plans. So, all the as-built plans are there for the whole complex.
And I see some problems if the setbacks aren't being adhered to.
For the building,
Yeah, and the lot lines. I know, you know, it looks like, on one of these plans that I forgot now which one it is,
I think they call that a Rubado.
well, it's, you know, if it's been,
I know.
uh,
I just want to make it known, that's all.
I think 6 years of zoning violations and
It's
10 for building.
sheet number,
I know it's small because, I had to make them small.
but you can see that I'll show it to the chair right here, it looks like that the decks are on somebody else's property.
So Mr. Ellis is referring to page 2, right from the top, no.
Yeah, it should be put next page down.
This page here. Let's get the roundabout, let's get the elevations. You're saying the decks, this property right here?
Would that be what's up on the screen right now?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
So you're saying right here?
yeah.
And that deck.
Yeah, you're supposed to have setbacks, as we all know, but that's why I wanted the as-built done, to make sure at least they were on the property. And the other one on the first page,
What street is that?
Stonebridge Drive, what they call it.
Is this the Pulte side?
Stonebridge Drive, that turned into Liberty Street.
no, that's not what
No?
No.
I'm sorry.
No, the first few sheets are, Stonebridge, towards the end
Oh, of the Pulte site.
is the Pulte site.
So that deck might be on its own, it might be on its own property lot line from the front side. That might be. Right?
It's the property line.
Yeah, it should be the rear, the side. This is either, I can't tell if this is the rear lot line or the side line of the property. So either way, they're too close to the buildings. If you look, there's I guess there isn't a heading on it for the,
Realistically, those decks should come down.
right. And and I'm not the one requesting that.
No, I'm not either.
We only have $4,100 in the
This is where we're at. This is
But I just want to bring it to the board's attention, that's all. There's a lot of discrepancies in here because, and I had a real big feeling. I know most of you weren't here on the board when he was doing this, but I warned him at that time.
Oh,
Ritter,
Yeah.
because he wanted to take the fourplexes and do
Duplexes.
so we could make more money because they sold better, because everybody wants an end unit. So the board voted that he could do that, but I warned him, you're taking, and now you're stretching it out where it was condensed.
Yeah, where those two duplexes are, there was originally a fourplex that was in there.
Right, stuff like that. So this is what he got himself into.
Is there anything that we would need, Tony, to be able to pass on to cover the town? Maybe a letter from legal counsel to be able to say that although endorsing passing this funds on to the HOA, it doesn't.
Well, the only thing that I think that you can do, Mr. Chairman, is, you have to go to the ZBA and get a variance.
I guess it would also depend on what year those buildings were put up, because there is,
That's the second portion, so that would have been 2013, 14, and 15, right?
yeah, and I believe that zoning violations,
7 years, isn't it?
I believe it's 6 on zoning and 10 on building. So, they would probably be covered on both ends, yes.
And not only that, the original approval is not 6 to 10 years old.
That's even older.
No, I'm saying the original approval, they still haven't been fully approved, have they? Because, we're just approving them now.
Right.
Well, they've been approved to be able to be sold.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Not all of them, like, I know some of them were sold, more recently than others, because, when I was on conservation, they were just getting started on that project. And so, I don't see how they could be all beyond that scope, that timeframe.
Still at this point,
well, Pulte did a portion of them.
Yeah.
And then when the environment changed for sales and stuff, they gave it back to Mr. Ritter. As he had sold it.
Yeah, but that second portion was built later. So, that timeline, I think, is different, I guess what I'm trying to say. So it's possible that, because, like, the approvals, he came in and approved, one building that was finished, so he could sell it, and he went back and approved another one. So, the timeline on all of those is different than the overall.
And so it's 6-year statute of limitations on building permits and 10-year statute of limitations on certain zoning violations.
Mm-hmm.
So they may be beyond that.
Yeah,
I have no
but they may
problem.
not be too.
They may not be too, it'd have to be researched as to determine that.
So, can I ask a question? Like, I know that, we haven't actually signed off on Ritter's, plan, right? So, we have a bylaw that pretty much says that, if he hasn't finished this project,
He can't.
he can't move on to do another one.
You're absolutely.
Which he's on the verge of doing at this point, right? So, I think, at least we should send a message, I guess is where I'm going with that. That, if you want to do this kind of nonsense, then, there's gonna be some repercussions. And, slowing down his timeline is painful. So, I would like to,
Would you like me to craft a letter from the planning board stating, let's say, your disappointment in his ability to perform on this project, and that
yes,
explain the bylaw,
yeah,
that,
that they actually, supported and voted. So, I guess all I'm really trying to say is that if we don't hold these people's feet to the fire, they're gonna ignore it. And they're gonna just continue to do whatever it is they want to do.
And unfortunately, we're holding on for the HOA, who's looking for the $4,000 so they can finish what they need to finish. And he's gonna get away with it because in the next 3 years, possibly, all of his zoning violations are all going away.
Right, so I guess, I haven't really fully formulated it in my mind, but I feel like, I think we have an opportunity to at least send a message that, it's unacceptable behavior, moving forward, if this is the way you want to be, you're gonna make it difficult.
I agree.
So is this a letter
I agree
that,
that he's got that thing for sale.
Well, that's fine.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Have you heard anything?
I have not heard anything on that project. I know it's slowed down because of the economy, and I know a couple of his people that do the earthwork for him, and they're saying that, he's running out of money at this point. But all those other projects up on the other side, and what's it, Bridgewater?
Yeah.
That's all him. So he's also has several projects on the other side, so I think this one's just, he's not focusing on it yet, but I think that day will come.
Why don't we send him a letter that reiterates the new bylaw?
so you want this letter just to Mr. Ritter?
Yeah,
That's a good place to start, but I'd like to see
CC it to the select board?
select board,
Okay.
so that.
And the building inspector.
And the building inspector.
And the ZBA.
And the ZBA. I just wanna, we went through all the trouble of getting a bylaw passed.
I'll put a sign out, right on 27.
I would do that, yeah. It can't flash though.
That's gonna make us all look bad too. So we don't wanna do that.
But it's nice, we actually were talking about putting up a planning board billboard somewhere, to get people in town know what's going on.
Select board, zoning board, building inspector.
And any other entity you feel would need to know.
Okay. And it's regarding, that's in the general bylaw, right?
It is, yes. At the same time, you need a decision from the planning board in regards to the coffers.
Correct.
Or how much?
$4,100.
Motion to return $4,100 to the Stonebridge Commons HOA.
Motion made by Mr. Kemet. Second by Mr. Cohen. Any discussion in regards to the motion releasing the $4,100 to the HOA?
I've got one question, Mr. Ellis. Because of the debacle we have now, do we need any monies for that? What is it gonna pay for? $4,000. I don't know, Tony, I guess that's to you. What would it take to straighten it out?
A lot more than $4,000.
Lawyers, okay.
Yeah.
Hearings, so you agree?
I think at this point, because it's at 4,100, that you're better off to give it to them. Because in the end, I think they're gonna wind up giving it to Marcianda because of outstanding invoices they have with him.
But maybe it's not a bad idea, again, for them, to make them aware that these inconsistencies are there, and that we're approving the $4,100 and let them, proceed from there. Because they're the ones that are aggrieved of their money. I feel bad for the person that owns the 2 decks that would have to come down, Be happy about that.
Well, the only way they could get around it, I think that would satisfy them, is to take the decks down and do patios. Stone. Because it's not a requirement for that. Setback.
That's a good point.
Any other discussion for Mr. Kemet's motion? Nope. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimous, Tom.
I do have a memorandum here that's gonna go from the planning board to Jeannie Sullivan, the treasurer collector.
Do you need me to sign?
I do have, if all members would like to sign on this.
We don't need a special pen or anything.
Nope.
Moving on, discussion, environmental partners observation report for Stonewall Estates. Town planner.
I'd like to move Stonewall Estates to the April 10th meeting if the board, the reason being is we have to go through that report. Also, this is not ready to go to May town meeting.
Okay.
I think it has some work, we have to take it, it has to go before the select board, they have to vote to lay it out. Their vote still stands. I just haven't had the opportunity to put everything together for this to go to town meeting.
Stonewall Estates, Litchfield Lane.
Correct, the Prospect Way, yeah. So, so I'd like to just table it to the 10th of April because I don't believe that we'll have a very full agenda like we've been having. and you can discuss it, and then I think in the end, this will go before October town meeting.
Request from the town planner to table discussion of Stonewall Estates till April 10th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Seconded. Motion made by Mr. Cohen, properly seconded by Mr. Ellis in regards to tabling Stonewall Estates until, or postponing Stonewall Estates until April 10th. Any questions in regards to that motion? Saying none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Unanimous. It's on for the 10th. Discussion town meeting article for surveying services of current highway department site, item 7 in your packet.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to
Mr. Kevin.
just throw it out there that, and I talked to Joe about this previously, that if I go in the Wayback Machine pretty far, right, I went for a site walk at the highway department with the then town engineer, who made a report and was summarily lynched as a result of it. So,
Mr. Hanson, were you able to reach out to Mr. Hanson at all?
Yeah.
No, I was not.
I don't know if there's anything on file.
What I have found is that there was a plan done, a survey plan for that site, which is also part of your packet. So I took that plan. After the last meeting, I spoke with Phil Clemens, who let me know that this was actually a Form A that was done some time ago and brought before the then planning board. It didn't pass. For some reason that night the planning board only had 3 members, and so it was a 3-2, and so it didn't pass. And then they never brought it back before the planning board again. But subsequently what they did is the Form A that you see before you, there are concrete monuments. You'll see that there's 2 lots. And the, let me just collect that.
Oh, yeah, look at that, we missed one. Yeah, what?
Yeah,
It's
there's 2.
Mr. Town Forest.
So let me just pull that up.
So one of the other things I wanted to mention is as well is that there were CPC funds expended on this site for upgrading the ball field. And according to that plan right there, the ball field and all that equipment is actually part of the highway line, which nullifies those monies. You've got a problem, a legal one.
So the issues here are, you see that there's a lot 11A and there's a lot 11.
Yes.
You'll see inside inside lot 11A, you'll see a dash line which represents, it says former lot line.
Mm-hmm.
That dash line is what is currently the highway department site based on available deeds, which are not very good.
Okay.
So then this plan was done, to my understanding, is to sort of correct the deficiencies that were encountered.
Mm-hmm.
The property line that you see for lot 11A, at each angle change, there is a concrete bound.
Oh, wow.
That was actually installed. So the plan you see before you actually exists on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
but it's never been approved. And I don't know why it never came back before the planning board. So there's all types of survey monuments and this plan was done by Land Planning back in 2014, I believe it was. Yeah, 2014.
By the way, it never came back. I don't want to say it on tape.
So I passed this along to the highway superintendent, who then passed it along to Weston and Sampson, who was the company that had been hired. And part of their $30,000 is they're going to do a site study, and one of the tasks, which I believe is on page 2, is for surveying, and I think it totals out to like $12,000. So
those concrete bounds are going to make the job a lot easier. Thank you. That was ridiculous.
That's a lot.
So I passed that along to the superintendent, who passed it along to Weston and Sampson, and it was interesting because the response the response was, from Weston and Sampson, that it was gonna cause more work, and I thought, that just doesn't make sense to me as a land surveyor, knowing that you have basically
Reference points.
a lousy, deed with minimal, monumentation, and, here's a plan that's already been done. So I was a bit confused and taken aback by their response, but anyway, they're still, as far as they're concerned, it's still part of the requirement of their, proposal.
Okay.
So, Highway's looking for, in essence, the planning board to put up an article and to appropriate that money at town meeting. So, what would happen is this survey would be done, and then, the results of that would go towards a feasibility study for the reuse of that site,
Which,
the highway site,
11A?
11A.
So, it's not the ball field, so.
Right, it'd be part of that bigger picture, that plan where I talked about, moving these ball fields over to McQuon.
Right.
And so the work that he's asking to be done here and appropriate monies for it will be part of looking at his site and putting new buildings on his own site, for the highway department, new offices and garages and so forth.
Mr. Kevin?
So, I think I just forgot what I have. I know that there was a plan, right? Not a plan, but a soil site survey done, right, by Data Engineering, which is, what's his name there? So, where is that? We don't have any idea where that is.
I do not.
I can remember something about this stuff.
Yeah, it was brought up once at town meeting, it was brought up at a planning board meeting, and it was also brought up in conservation because, the question at the time was, when they wanted to move it to the other site, right, the first question most people asked was, what kind of contamination is on the existing site?
Oh, yeah.
So, right, yeah, when they were moving the Hawks out.
Right.
So the idea was, a lot of people felt that the cost was too low because no one had looked at whether there was any contamination on site. Right, so, I think Al Hanson, said that he would go down there and do a site survey, and, I even think he hired somebody to, do some preliminary work as to what was there. And, I think, to be honest with you, that's probably why it's lying. But, it would be nice to get all that report, because we can help with the, or does it really matter?
It depends. I guess it would depend on how old the report is. I'm not sure if the highway superintendent is even aware of the report.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't tell you whether that.
So what do you need,
So what's happened also just to let the board know, at the suggestion of the town administrator, I did place a placeholder for this article. But she had said that maybe just write up the article, or I just still have a placeholder for it.
we're supposed to figure out where we're gonna request that the 29,900 come from.
Which I said was the key thing.
And we're not gonna be able to know that until we talk to somebody from Incom.
I think someone mentioned ARPA money. I think somebody kicked around the idea of ARPA money.
We have everybody in the conference?
I think that might be me.
So, you need a motion from us to put the plan?
So the question becomes, do you want to put a motion to support or put up an article appropriating $30,000 for that proposal? That's
From ARPA funds? We specify in the article? How about, could we specify in the article,
what you could specify ARPA funds or other available.
yeah, 29,900 be deducted, or appropriated from ARPA funding and/or whatever, fiduciary account that FinCom would support?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I offer a thought? I only know this, I don't know why I know it, but I know that the warrant articles have to be reopened, right? And that would be a good opportunity to approach the selectmen with the idea of who's, from what funds this is gonna come.
Yeah.
Right, because I feel personally, I can't support an article when we don't even know where the funds are coming from, right? And that's you can't submit an article without knowing where the money's coming
Has there been any money spent on the ARPA funds yet?
Yes.
If they have, I'm not aware of it. So.
We can Google and see what the town got for ARPA funds.
Well, you could,
Depends on what phase it was, too.
I think, what's happening though is everybody in their mother is aware of the ARPA funds and people just keep proposing all these ideas of what to do with it.
Yeah.
And I think they have plans of what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is I think you should have a discussion with the selectmen before we, support an article that we don't even know where the funding is coming from. And it's just my 2 cents.
You guys approve that I contact the chair of the select board to talk about that?
I have a question first.
Sure.
What, after all this discussion, what is the purpose of going back and doing this?
Well, I can answer that if you don't mind. I'd like to throw it out there. Tony's worked up a plan of the future, right?
Right.
So, and we've all been in support of that, right? And this is just one piece in a huge puzzle where if this all gets done and, the site's been cleaned and, the 21E is finished, well, that's the first step in moving forward with the plan to relocate those ball fields to a different area. So it's just like step one in a couple of hundred steps, So you got to start somewhere. So, and to be honest with you, from the looks of that site and the lack of real history that goes with it, being that it's a town-owned property, I think those lines should be drawn and clear so that everybody knows what's what. Well, just throwing that out there, because no matter what happens there, it still should be, all those deeds and all that stuff should be straightened out.
The way I look at it is, you want to know if the site will pass a 21E.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Why don't you just want to do a 21E? I mean, why did it?
Well, we can't.
Well, that's part of what I think Weston and Sampson is proposal. That's part of their proposal is to do stuff like that.
But they can't do it off of this A&R submission, this plan, because
So what-
this plan wasn't actually properly endorsed.
So what it was is the highway superintendent went to Weston and Sampson and they gave them that proposal, and on, I believe it's one of the second or sheet, they give tasks. And it's site assessment.
Yeah.
It just so happens one of those tasks also involves land surveying and establishing the property lines. And so at the last meeting, when Mr. Kemet said, hey, I think there was a plan done already, I went to see Mr. Clemens. And Mr. Clemens said, yeah, there was an A&R done, but it was denied. And I went into our files and actually found it, which is the plan you see before you. Now the interesting part is that, I passed this along to the highway, who passed it along to Weston and Sampson, who passed it along to their surveyor. And the surveyor had kind of replied that, oh, well, geez, it would have been nice if we had received this earlier. Well, it didn't come to light until yesterday. And then the other thing was, oh, this makes it more difficult. And I'm like, really? I think all the work's been handed to you. I don't know how it's more difficult, but whatever. I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. So the interesting part here with this property is the plan you see in front of you, though never endorsed by the planning board, on the ground actually exists as you see it.
Right.
All those bounds are in place. So at some point, I think that yes, I think maybe this Form A has to come back, or should come back before the planning board, and then a determination be made that either A, you're going to just go with what's in front of you and say, yep, we know that there's been sins in the past, but this is going to be the new configuration of the highway property. Or adjustments are made and they go back to the footprint that they originally had, which is the dashed lines as the former lot line, like here, Yeah, which the unfortunate part is, there was 17 bounds put out there, that was a lot of work, you know, and
Yeah,
so they
actually,
just,
I remember at town meeting, I think if you look back, the money was appropriated for that. So, you know,
so I think at some point, you know, this plan, I think, again, like I said, again, should come forward, and if it's determined that, yeah, let's just go with this, then it's great, it's already on the ground, and just get it recorded. And say, okay, now the highway department will have, 9.1 acres of land to work with, versus what they have now, which is, I think, 6.
Yeah.
and you know, can I just throw something else up there? It probably makes sense, right, to bifurcate some of this, so that if, because if there's 21E stuff on one site, but not on the rest of it, that could be incredibly helpful. I don't know if that makes sense to you, what I'm saying. But if they were to carve out the area where the 21E would potentially be, so that, they could issue a 21E on only a portion of the property, and that's allowable because, you know, it was always the intent that the highway barn would be separate from all that other stuff. It just never happened. But, if we do separate it, at least at that point, the 21E issue becomes a much smaller than it could potentially be.
Yeah, I think, okay, so if
What do you think? Do you think I'm wrong on that?
No, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're gonna, you're gonna open up a whole can of worms. That's what everybody say.
Yep.
And it's gonna cost the town an awful lot of money.
to do the Weston and Sampson site evaluation, or the plan that's in front of you?
I'll talk to you later.
So we'll find that out through the process.
So we still have the question,
So-
you know.
So ultimately, we come back to, is the planning board willing to support or write up an article
Yeah.
for $30,000, or do you wanna do a little more work on that?
Can I make a suggestion? Why can't we, move this up to the October town meeting, right? And because we still have a lot of logistical work that needs to be done before we even get to the point of having a,
Right, you can open out, oh, you know, at the last minute, that, you know, don't go forward, but
yeah,
if you don't do it now, you won't be able to do it later. At least you can have it out there.
what are you saying, like, let it go until town meeting and then take
No,
it out?
go, do your motion
Yeah,
and go forward with what you wanna do.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, again, you know, we're gonna make a motion to ask the selectmen to open up an article, and the first thing they're gonna ask us is where's the money coming from?
All right, so we had
don't have that
a suggestion to take it from ARPA funding.
Thank you for that.
ARPA funds are, funds that the state
One-time money.
sent down to the town. But there's money in the bank account, you know, it came out of COVID and all that, there is money in the bank account.
If there's money there, then they can vote for it in town hall, at town meeting, if we can get it or not.
Right. So it'd be ARPA funds or whatever the FinCom supports.
Yeah. You know what that's gonna be, but, you know.
They'll support it coming out of ARPA funds because it's
Yeah.
not the money that's come out of the tax coffers, so.
Okay, yeah.
Who's in charge of that?
In charge of ARPA is,
Selectmen.
yes, Selectman Town Manager.
Good.
Yeah. Sound good, Tony? You need that in a motion?
Yeah, so let's clear up that.
I entertain a motion for the town planner to write an article to forward on to the board, the select board, in regards to appropriating $29,900 to move forward the Weston and Sampson quote received on March 2nd, 2023, for the funds to be spent out of ARPA funding or a fiduciary account supported by FinCom.
So,
Motion's been made by Mr. Bernardo, seconded by Mr. Ellis. Any questions in regards to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? 4-1. Motion carries.
I do. But not, I don't want my name on this article because that's not gonna go.
Okay, it's more than one occurrence. Okay, so, we're all done with our board business, administration update, town planner update.
Okay, first thing is I have an invoice for $90, which goes for advertising.
Yep.
And
So just so you know, voting no doesn't mean I don't support this whole thing, I just don't support the way it's being done.
you're looking for a little more clarification.
Yes, I am. Yep.
I'm sure we'll get that.
I just think it's a good first step, you know, I do.
That's why I think we should do it in October.
Is that Tony? Just an invoice? Nice.
Correct.
Cool, that's it. All right, we'll go back. Anything else? One update? One-stop plan update?
Yeah, so the one-stop grant, I believe I informed the board that I had what they call expressions of interest. Those went to the state. They gave us feedback. They agreed with the classifications that I felt that these grants fell into. And so what the next step is to go to a full application, and I have reached out. In the full application, that's when you start to tighten up your budget numbers. So I reached out to a company to get some proposals, to get a proposal on some of these budget numbers to help us out. And then one of the projects, which is the food pantry site, that would need more of an architect. The other ones are more engineering. So I will be looking at getting some numbers there, and then getting them to the state before the deadline. And so we're shooting for 5, maybe 6 grants.
5 or 6, nice.
And that's all I have right now. I'll bring this up. 120 Roller Coaster Road. That property's been sold, and the new owner came to see me, and he has a new engineer, and he just is changing the house style, not the location. He's doing a little different grading. So I explained.
The 120 we approved the A&R for.
Correct. That Mr. Curtins. And improvement to private way. So his engineer, I explained to him I want to see a revised plan and a letter explaining what they're doing. They're going to provide that, so they'll be coming forward on the next agenda. It's just a case that I want the current owner on record, the current plan on record, the current engineer on record, and they're not changing anything other than some grading and the house style. So that'll be coming before the board. And I think that's all I have for this evening. So
I'll go back to Mr. Kevin's conversation with the topic about
The
Tony, can you pull up the jazz?
So one of the questions, it sounded to me from what they were saying is that if they can't do a 25-unit complex, they're probably not going to be interested, right? So I guess my question is, can we figure out a way to look at it, ask them for some kind of, I don't know, napkin drawing or something, to see what it is that they're proposing, to see if we can get it to fit into the site through ZBA prior to them even spending any money on it at this point. Because even if they don't do it, right, maybe if we have it pre-approved for a particular project because it's a friendly 40B, then we could lay it all out for them ahead of time so that it could go forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have another question to add on to that.
Yeah.
Out of the 14 town-owned properties that we have, any of them more than 2.8 acres?
That's a good question.
Yes. Yes, but not that would be, but they'd be better used for business, which they're in a business zone, or a commercial industrial zone versus residential.
Tony, can you go down to my street? Can you go to one by the, on the bottom left corner. If you could delineate somehow approximate what's upland and what's,
Right.
that's what you need to start with.
Yeah, you know, and I know, like, if this were 40, someone was proposing a 40B, right? They'd come in with a plan, they'd have it all delineated, and say, we don't have to do this, we don't have to do that, this is the way we want it. I'd like to see that site laid out that way.
I'm trying to get the map. And Mr. Ellis made a good point too, can they bring up fiduciary contribution, what are they gonna pay for it? Go to the northwest, northeast. You see, right there, click on that.
I forget that one, just go across it off.
That's Town of Hanson owned, it's 10 acres, too wet. Yeah, it's too wet, because see the 7-43?
Mm-hmm.
That's owned by Mrs. Fontaines. It's a wooded lot, and it's been empty for years, and I don't believe Mrs. Fontaines has any intention of doing it. But I know about the 10 acres that's out behind it. Is it too wet out there still?
Yeah, you gotta look on there, because there's more overlays on that than you think. I also think there's a stream that runs through there somewhere.
To the left, yeah, you're right, my old brook.
And, so that adds, what street is that?
Woodbine. Paris, Woodbine, Paris.
Okay, yeah, now I know.
So they are considering other properties besides town-owned properties?
Well, yeah, but doesn't have to be somewhere near the center of town or something?
Yeah, that's, you know, they have those desires to be close to the main roads and stuff, you know?
That's why I asked the question of the train station proximity.
But I think that site would be more difficult for them to develop than, the one on Phillips Street, because of the amount, like, that's showing you the wetlands, it's not showing you the buffer zones and, you know, everything involved in it. So there's almost, I think from the road, Joe, there's no real access, not wide enough to.
Right, not unless they bought Mrs. Fontaines' property. It's the only way they do. But those two combined is a pretty decent size.
Oh, it is, no, you know, I'm not, denying that, I'm just,
Well,
it's like, so can we bring up, the Phillips Street site? And just get a sense of, you know, that's it right there?
This is the Phillips Street site right here. So it's not like it's, you're right, and I find that with these organizations that, if they don't have a particular number, they really don't seem to have much interest.
Right, interest rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be, for it to work for them, it seems to have to be a high number.
Yeah, I don't know, I guess what I'm saying is, in order for it to work for us, right, we own that piece of property, and we've expressed an interest in doing something with it, right? But, if this Soldier On thing doesn't work, right, is there a group that would be willing to go with a smaller site if it were pre-approved? You know what I'm saying?
Doesn't that fall underneath what the state is throwing down the throats? About zoning areas for?
Yeah.
Yes, this falls within half a mile of the MBTA, obviously, and yes, this is actually part of one of the districts that I've created in the toolkit to start looking at the numbers and how they will all work. But it is a Town of Hanson piece.
So is it possible that you know, because of the MBTA portion of this, right, that, the state would be willing to help fund this to some extent? And that way, you know, the burden is less on them financially.
There is.
So, I'm looking at CPC, I'm thinking, right, there's money there, not a shit ton of that. There's $1.5 million in the account, right, but I don't think I can get those 9 people to vote that amount of money. But I guess some, you know, CPC funding and maybe some, grant money.
There is state grant money.
Yeah.
That is specifically directed towards affordable, and helping municipalities create affordable housing. And so I read about it, there was a webinar, and so I found it a very interesting grant program that I actually and looking to pursue that grant and get money, because they said about, I think it's $1.5 million rolling grant, so we can get some money out of it that will help do, I think, exactly what you're looking for, which is to get a site like that, maybe delineated a wetland, approve the wetland, and see what we can do.
Yeah, like, prove it as like, I know they want 25 units, but they're probably not gonna get that, right? So what I'm wondering is with some, CPC funds and maybe some grants from other organizations that are looking to, improve the MBTA access stuff, that, we could whittle it down to the point where even though it's not 25 units, it would still be financially viable for them. So I don't know if that's possible. I'm just, trying to think outside the box, because this looks like it's going down the toilet unless there's a more creative way to.
John makes a really good point. What about the veteran town forest? It's not in conservation, but that's next to the highway. That's a huge piece of property.
Nice knowing you, Don.
Or you planning on using it for something else?
I'm a veteran of that.
Town forest.
I don't ever drive by and go, I'm so happy that that's
Let's put it this way,
there.
I think it's just a name.
the word around the bubbler is that's like a no touch.
By who though? Pull it
They've
up.
been saying that for years.
Pull it up. Look at the advantage of that property. That property goes all the way back to
You're talking
the,
about the town forest?
the property goes all the way back to the town farm.
That's deeded out, like, the feds and the state.
The only reason that's a town forest was because back then, when they made it a town forest, they used to use the lumber out of the
I know.
tree for building, facilities, for
Yeah.
homes and all that other stuff,
Actually, at this
which we
point.
don't do anymore.
Right.
Yeah, see, Paul's,
Yeah, but-
Paul's not too funny. How do you feel when you drive by that?
It looks like a mess.
I think you're missing a point though, because it's a town forest, right, it's been designated as such, you can still plumbing for this, right? But, you have to go to the legislature in order to, undo that.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, but don't you think it was going through for the veterans?
If you could find a better site, right, to locate the
Actually,
forest.
it's the best site.
This right here though, yeah, regardless of it, that's gonna be a WWE match at town.
So,
Yeah, well, people are gonna go.
I'd rather see a nice statue on the town lawn for the modern day bed than looking at a tree down there.
so couldn't you, also propose, I don't know the acreage of the highway department, couldn't they put a veterans facility next to the highway line? Like, is it possible to?
Yeah, it could be a multi-use too.
There's not enough room.
Well, it's just a question, I don't know the,
How many days ago, remember back when they wanted to put the cell tower there?
Yeah.
They're supposed to go out there.
Yeah, but wasn't that was supposed to have
That's
something
because
with the falls?
that's 'cause the people on King Hill and.
Yeah, the falls out from King's Landing Road.
Yep.
People said, no, wait, he said, we don't want
So,
the town hall.
you see what I'm saying, though, Tony? I feel like,
And the private organizations, we can reach out to them. I think unfortunately for the private organizations, we don't necessarily, Main Street, obviously if you were to include, let's say, the softball field and a historic site, now you get a nice big piece of property in their ballpark.
Mhm.
And we also know that in 1990, that site, the LV Thomas, there was a site plan that showed additional building.
Right.
And completely designed.
Yeah.
So, I think with these organizations that, unless they're gonna get the big chunks, we're gonna have a tough time getting them to get behind it.
Right.
But, yes, we can try and see if there's other organizations that might not need such a big chunk of land to do the same thing, or we look at, like, this grant, program to see about going about it sort of on our own,
Mhm.
kind of get it moving,
Yeah.
and then finding someone who'd be willing to
Yeah,
step in.
Here's a site, you can put 18 units here, it's already pre-approved, ready to go. It's been through ZBA, it's been through this and that, and then, I think it could move forward. And, I would like to see the veterans group, develop a site in town, I think it would be awesome. But, if that boat's gonna sail, and from what I'm hearing from them, neither one of those two sites that they fit into their, in their box, I'd say, right? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Uh,
For good of the order, and we were talking earlier on about Mr. Ritter, there's another property that Mr. Ritter owes us on, and it's Sleepy Lane.
I'll add to my town planner update. I've begun looking at some of these open projects, doing the research, and I actually come up with a letter for one of them already. I haven't brought it forward yet, 'cause I'm still trying to research these other ones, but I have prepared a letter, to, you know.
With that letter going forward to the other boards and other committees, we could add that there's 2 properties now that we're waiting on. He owed money when I first got on the board, and he was doing Stonebridge, he was bringing it back, he took it back. And Noreen O'Toole, I told her I was gonna bring it up at the meeting, planning board meeting, that he owed the highway department 2 or 3 years back, paid that he hadn't paid for sanding and stuff on Sydney Lane. And she says, "You can't do that, he's doing good stuff." And the town planner, the town administrator at the time said, "Yeah, you can't bring that up on us, that's not right." I said, "Okay, it's a bylaw, so I brought it up at the meeting, right? He comes in, and he starts proposing what he wants to do with Stonebridge, and I said to him, "Oh, by the way, I think you owe some money for," and Noreen's going like this, right? He owes my electricity. And he said, "Oh, yeah, I got the check ready, already made out for it, it'll be there tomorrow morning."
Still waiting.
Anybody else have anything to go to the order?
Like to set the next meeting date?
Yeah, we can set the next meeting date for April 10th. Oh, is that April 10th?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis will have to chair that meeting. You can't take it there, I'll be in Florida. You can sign a contract, I'll be in Florida, good luck. I can do it on Zoom if you like. And Mr. Ellis will have to chair that meeting. Motion to have our next meeting for April 10th. Motion's been made, seconded by Mr. Cohen. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Nay? Nay. Motion carries 4-1. Next date.
Did he really do it, nay? Motion to adjourn? I take motion to adjourn? Yep. Mr. Ellis, seconded by Mr. Benedetto. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned at 8:19.